This is a Dauntless Media Collective podcast. Visit dauntless.fm for more content.
I have loved learning those things and building that, and then realizing I'm okay no matter what happens in the world that's so unsafe and feels so uncertain. I know that inside of me I can be, and I am okay, and I love me, and I am gentle with myself, and that is a safe place.
Yeah.
I know we're going to have to mark this as explicit because I can't think of any other way to talk about all this without saying fucking Texas every time I say the word Texas.
Oh, man.
It's fair. It's appropriate.
Yeah.
Well, welcome.
Yeah. Okay. I guess, you know what, Jessica, your voice hasn't been heard very much lately. So do you want to go ahead and give us our intro?
Sure,
Are you okay with that?
I am okay with that. I didn't plan it, but we can go on the fly here. All right. Well, hello and welcome to another podcast with all of us.
We're the Dauntless Media Collective.
The Dauntless Media Collective. Yes. Yeah.
Some of.
Some of us. Yeah.
Yeah. Welcome to some of the Dauntless Media Collective podcast hosts. We are here today to react.
3 days post.
Oh, God.
Post. It's hard to even spit out like post-election, 3 days. It
Right.
doesn't it feel like a longer period of time
It does.
that has gone by in 3 days? Or how are you guys feeling?
It feels like a
Yeah.
week, at least to me. Yeah.
Hard to say.
Yeah. Why don't we name who all is here?
Let's go around the table. Yeah.
Cool. I'll kick us off. So I'm Nate. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm one of the co-hosts of the Full Mutuality podcast with my partner, Gail.
I'm Gail, and I'm she, her, and other co-host.
I'm Maggie. I use she, her pronouns, and I host the Hello Deconstructionists podcast.
I'm Scott, reporting live from Minneapolis. He, him pronouns. I do the Chapel Probation and Horny Chapel podcast.
Yes. I am Jessica Goforth. I use she, her pronouns. I am of the Leaving the Village podcast. And yeah, here we go.
Yeah. And on behalf of our other podcasts, some of our friends weren't able to make it. This was a very last minute kind of thing, but just wanted to give them all a shout out. But, our friends over at the Thereafter podcast, Cortland and Megan,
Yes.
and of course, Daniel over at Profane Faith, and our newest podcast, actually, Alicia and Wild Violet over at Not Safe for Worship. And who am I missing? Am I missing anyone else? Oh, well, Camille and I have yet to get started on How False a Foundation, but we're, Camille's part of the network as well. So
Very relevant, talking about
Yeah.
KKK history in evangelicalism.
Yeah, pretty on the nose.
yeah.
Yeah, pretty on the nose.
Here we are. So, I mean, maybe it'd even be helpful to when we, I think I want to know how you're all doing, but locate yourself for us, where you're coming in from this, what your surroundings have been up to this point in where you're located, how you were feeling before, how you're feeling now.
Yeah.
Maybe we could just go around and kind of just situate, how it's been for each of us over the last 3 days and even a little before.
Yeah. I can start. This is Maggie for people who aren't familiar with my voice. I'm in Massachusetts. I'm outside of Boston, and Massachusetts always goes blue. So I feel really lucky in that sense. But I'm about 45 minutes outside of Boston. So I'm in a more conservative part of Massachusetts. So there are people on my street with Trump signs, people on my street with like gun stickers on their trucks. And so it feels eerily like rural upstate New York where I grew up, even though, it's also a blue state, but I'm kind of here in this sort of rural area in it. And I've just been noticing like the differences between 2016 and now. And in 2016, I voted for Hillary. I went to the Women's March in January of 2017. So I really like felt the weight of it then too. But this time it almost just feels like status quo rather than something like really shocking. I mean, it is shocking, and I feel like I have been in shock the last couple of days, but it's still like, I think about my students. I'm an elementary school teacher, and I think about my students, and this is all that they've ever known. Like, they've never had a world where Trump wasn't a politician who was speaking. And so it's sort of like less surprising than it was in 2016 almost. And that feels kind of weird and jarring.
Because it was such a shock the first time around and everyone was just like, what the heck? And now it's sort of for the next generation, like, yeah, we all know this is a politician and on the scene.
Right. And I realize the privilege that I am coming in with to say that the first time it was a shock. It's like these things weren't new in America, but they were being spoken so loudly. And I mean, that just shows that like I wasn't feeling the effects of it as much as many other people in the country were. So I also want to make sure to say that too. Like, these aren't new ideas. And the fact that it felt shocking in 2016 shows that, that I'm coming into this with a really privileged view. So I want to make sure that that's clear at the beginning of this too. But yeah, that's kind of where I've been the last couple of days.
Yeah. I can go next to kind of contrast because you guys are also back east, but yeah.
Take us to Texas. Take us to Red Texas.
Yeah. I'll start by my sense of things. I'm Jessica, by the way, and I'm the Leaving the Village podcast, and I've talked a lot about my deconstruction from the cult of IBLP, ATI that the Duggars were a part of. And of course, Texas is known for being very, very, very red. And I am new to Texas. I did not grow up here. I came here about 14 years ago. And I was going through the change to being more liberal that whole time. So by the time we get to 2016, I was very, very hopeful that Hillary would get elected. I didn't feel able to vote for her because I was in a very abusive relationship where he was having tight control over my choice, my ability to vote and how I voted. And so when she lost, I was devastated and I couldn't deal with this. And my mental health was very much downhill during the Trump years. My post-separation abuse, because I was going through my divorce during that time, ramped up so much more. And so I felt very affected by it. So I got very involved in 2018 in Texas, where we were trying to get Beto O'Rourke elected as in place of Ted Cruz. And I was very hopeful and very excited. And if you followed politics of Texas at that time, you'll know that he only lost by like 2 points. It was very close, and it was very exciting to everyone that he even got that close. And now, we were just so excited and hopeful that this was it. Like, a lot of Texas counties flipped blue in 2020 and voted for Biden. And we were very excited about this. It was like, okay. We've got some momentum going, And 2022 seemed okay. We got stuck with Governor Abbott again, and that was a huge disappointment. And when he lost again, Beto ran against him, and that was a very big blow. But we kept thinking, okay, Texas is headed in the right direction. It's getting more blue. So here we go. And I went into this. I did block walking for Harris. I worked early voting. I'm an election judge, so I worked the polls and all this. And I was just like, woohoo, we got this. This is happening. I can feel it. It's coming.
I called you for emotional support before the election because I was holding my breath. And you were like, Gail, I'm in Texas. This is exciting. There's good energy here. And I was like, okay, if you're in Texas and there's good energy, I'll calm down. I was like, thank you for talking me down because I'm worried.
And I could not have been more wrong. So I will give you some stats and some things that some notes that I wrote of what actually happened on election day and where we ended up in Texas. But one of the little tiny bright spots is Amarillo did not pass their abortion travel ban, which was something they were really trying to get passed, where you could be prosecuted for traveling on their roads to get out of state to New Mexico and get an abortion.
Oh, wow.
Because that's on the border of New Mexico.
Because Texas has an abortion ban, and it's a
near
strict
total
one. And yeah,
it's 6 weeks, and most people don't know they're pregnant by then. And after that, you can go to jail. You can go to jail for life if you perform an abortion. Like it's bad here. It's very, very bad. So that's a tiny little glimmer of hope. That's the only thing. I mean, we kept Jasmine Crockett in the house. That's good. She's amazing, and we're really happy to have her, and a few others that we hung on to as well. But Ted Cruz beat Colin Allred by 9 points.
Yeah.
And Trump beat Harris in Texas by 14 points. And let me see if I can read this correctly. So Trump beat Harris by 14 percentage points in Texas, a significant increase from his 5-point advantage over Joe Biden in 2020 and his 9-point lead over Hillary Clinton in 2016.
It's just like a massive, massive swing towards Trump.
So this is not better. We're not even close to headed in the right direction.
No.
So it's a lot. It's a lot to take in. One of the biggest blows to me was South Texas, the Rio Grande Valley, which is very Hispanic and has been the Texas's blue wall, and it went red this time.
Ooh.
And that is what pushed us so far over in Texas, and I was just not prepared for this. But I have all the notes. The Republican Party invested a tremendous amount of money down there in the Rio Grande Valley. They did a tremendous amount of fear mongering and worry about the border. And my daughter lives there. I go down there all the time. I've never noticed it to feel unsafe. I've never experienced anything down there. And I don't believe she has either. So it's just one of those things where it's like, it's in their heads as a thing that's not a thing.
Right.
This border crime, this idea that the border is this lawless, scary place. So yeah, this is really where Harris lost, is in the minority vote. Mm-hmm. If the minorities had sided with her the way they did with Biden, we wouldn't be where we are today. I am trying to stay hopeful. I am connecting with people in person. We're focusing our Facebook groups for local into okay, let's stop talking on Facebook. Let's go meet. Let's go down to this coffee shop. Let's go to this park. Let's all go for a walk. Last night we all went and did yoga at the public library, which is just a block from my house. We all stayed and talked in the parking lot until well into the night. It was very healing. It's very good that we are, and these are people I have been having conversations with on Facebook for the last 2 years. We've never met in person, and we are now. And so that is, I think that's hopeful. I think that's huge. And I think that's how things change, is when we look people in the face and we know who they are. We know that we can go knock on their door, and we have their numbers in our phone, and we can text them and say, hey, can you help me out? We've got this situation. This is going on. So I'm hopeful about that. I think that's our only way forward. So that's me. That's Texas.
Let's go to the West Coast now.
Yeah.
California.
Scott, what was it like out there?
Scott, what's happening?
Oh, that's me. And tell me if I'm now walking on a major street, so if it gets too loud, just let me know.
Okay, it sounds all right.
Okay. West Coast, definitely insulated from reality. A lot of my friends were feeling really hopeful this time, because why wouldn't a logical person feel hopeful that America would not vote for a convicted rapist, convicted business fraud person,
a 34
who
times
spews
felon,
racism, who can't finish sentences?
Right.
Why? And we know why. Misogyny, racism, all the things.
Yeah. So
a lot of us weren't surprised, but I thought it was going to be closer. They got their abortion bans. They got, so they focused on trans people. They focused on people in my community. And apparently that works. And, if Harris was a man, we'd probably be having a different conversation. But I just feel like a big chunk of the country is not ready to vote for a woman.
Right.
Just to point out some of the, minority, BIPOC folks, but also white folks too,
Yes, please. We need to talk about this.
If white folks voted for Harris, we would be fine too. It's a problem all the way around, right? And
even if Democrats had just turned out like they did for Biden, for Harris.
Yeah.
And instead they
stayed
home.
And there's a part of me, and I get, if you're a Palestinian or even if you're a Muslim American, and you're watching kids being blown up in tents with the stuff that we gave Israel. There's a part of me that understands.
Yeah.
They're like, fuck America, let it burn to the ground, because we're just standing by watching genocide happen, and nobody gives a shit, hardly anybody. And so there's a part of me that's like, yeah, we kind of deserve Trump and the coming apocalypse of Project 1725. And I mean, yeah. So the reaction on the West Coast is probably shock. I didn't even watch the returns. I think started watching at like 4 p.m. Pacific Coast time. And I decided I don't want to put myself through the nightmare that 2016 was. And so I just, went out to dinner. Friend came over. We started singing sad songs and karaoke. We kind of just knew.
Yeah.
Good things were not going to happen. And yeah, there's legal weed in California. We're very thankful for that. So that's where we are. Sorry, I'm walking by a bus now.
Oh, no worries.
So yeah, y'all take it away before I just keep spinning into existential crisis.
Yeah.
We'll have time for that too.
Yeah. I guess I'll give the report from the East. We don't have anybody that could talk about the Southeast, but we'll bring us back.
We got Maggie on the East too. Got a lot of East.
Well, we'll bring us back to the Northeast. So, I live just about a 25-minute train ride from Midtown Manhattan. This area of the country is very, very, very heavily blue. I mean, it's a major urban area. I mean, we often think of New York City as a huge city, but New York City is also it spreads out into New Jersey quite a bit. Both Newark and Jersey City, which are two of New Jersey's largest metropolitan areas.
They're New York City extensions, pretty much.
Yeah, they're right across the river from New York City. So it kind of feels like, I don't know if you remember I think it was either Batman Begins or The Dark Knight, and there's just this sprawling urban kind of view, like this skyline, and you can't see the end of a city. That's kind of what it's like over here. Sure, Manhattan has the skyscrapers, but if you get on top of, say, the World Trade Center and you look out, you don't see anything that isn't urban. So that's kind of where I am placed, and it's very reliably blue. But the little town that I'm in, the little neighborhood I'm in, is a bit of a 50-50 toss-up neighborhood. It went
red.
Yeah, it went for Trump back in 2020 by it was 51-ish to Biden's 49. This year, I haven't looked at anything. I mean, votes haven't entirely been counted yet across the country, and
it's probably the same or more for
I wouldn't be surprised. Thankfully, our county, Bergen County, I say thankfully as if it means anything, but Bergen County went blue. New Jersey itself obviously went for Harris. There wasn't really much of a threat that it would turn, but looking at the overall numbers, it is a little bit scary how close Trump got here. And at least for almost the entirety of my life, New Jersey has been a stronghold of Democratic votes. And I think the last time Jersey went Republican in the general election for a president was George H.W. Bush's first term. So the sentiment out here, I'm sorry, I'm not actually home right now, but the sentiment in New Jersey, I think, is probably a little bit shocked because there was excitement in some of those towns for Harris.
Yeah.
Though at the same time, I was a little bit surprised at the lack of Harris Walls signs. Usually when, for Biden, for Obama, there was a lot of signage everywhere. I only reliably saw, people turning out for Harris Walls in the campaign in the sort of performatively blue towns like Montclair and Maplewood. So if you're in New Jersey, there are a couple of towns that are very, very, very left-wing in their sort of political activity. It tends to be performative because some of the policies within those towns don't really reflect how the people tend to want to vote. But those were the only towns that I really saw signage for Harris and Walls.
I think signage can be so misleading because my town was the opposite. Like 2020, I think I saw maybe 3 signs for Biden at all, ever.
Okay.
Like nobody. And we had this town nearly completely painted with Harris signs. I mean, it was 50-50. The energy and excitement I felt from the Democrat Party here in town was stunning for Harris. And I was excited. But again, this has to do with leadership. This has to do with the party leadership in your town. And it has to do with the money that they raise and the enthusiasm that whoever is in charge has. And they affect whether people buy or pick up signs and put them out. And
I don't think in blue states they care to invest the money to rally the troops because they're like, you guys are given,
and
this is not where we need to put.
I think
Pennsylvania.
that was one of the things that sort of frustrated me about the Harris campaign. And I know we're kind of talking, a political strategy and whatnot, and that's not who we are. None of us have like political strategy experience. No. We're all we're cult survivors, we're ex-evangelicals, and we'll get to some of that sort of reflection. But I think right now we're all kind of grasping at straws. I kind of feel myself right now that sounds a little harsh. I kind of feel myself sort of grasping, just looking for answers, looking for what I can kind of hold on to. And one of the things that bothered me a little bit was the fact that Harris didn't show up in New Jersey during her campaign. And that's not to say that would have changed anything because New Jersey didn't flip, but it to me, and maybe, it was the fact that her campaign only lasted 100 days. We could probably point fingers at Biden for not stepping down earlier and giving Harris a longer campaign so that she could have done more work. We could point our fingers at Merrick Garland for not having actually gotten Trump behind bars, because we wouldn't even be having this conversation if the Justice Department had done their job. And sure, I realize I'm getting angry and animated right now, but I
think that's the point of sitting down to chat, though.
Let it out.
That is what I wanted to affirm from us, is for us to be able to go into from our head to our hearts, because a lot of us are having a lot of feelings and we need to process this.
One thing I do want to bring up, and I know we'll probably be talking about this a little bit, but one thing I want to bring up is as we are doing this, processing it, pointing fingers, asking questions, I think, and you have, Gail, I know how you have a lot of thoughts on this as well, but one thing I want to mention that I think is important for all of us to really pay attention to is we're turning on our people. And I'm seeing a lot of rhetoric from the Democratic Party, from Democratic loyalists, that is vilifying trans people and blaming them for what happened. Trans people are 1% of the population here. Even if they came out, 100% of them in droves and voted third party or against Harris for whatever reason, that wouldn't have made even close to a dent.
No.
And regardless, the issue then, I think I heard some political commentator talking about how, they're using right-wing talking points now. They're saying, I believe that, biologically male, quote unquote, should not be playing in women's sports. These are not how we should be talking.
There's a Democrat. The Democrats are having to figure out, what do we do? This didn't work.
Yeah.
Whatever we did last time didn't work. What do we do going forward? And there's a choice, right? We stay with exactly where we've been. We go further left and we include more people, or we try and compromise more of our values to suck away right-wing people. Like, this is literally like the question that has to be asked from internally, is like, what do we do to win? And do we compromise who we are? I feel like it has already happened in the last election. And all right, I'm going to give my thoughts. Gail here, coming in from Canada. I'm in Canada right now. I have my SSN. I have my American passport.
Okay, you are a dual citizen.
I am a dual citizen. I voted for the very first time. I was really trying to get my paperwork in order to vote for the first time, and I did. I succeeded to do that. I was like, I am going to vote for the first female president. Yay! This will be historic. It is historic, and not in the way that I was planning for this vote.
Not in the way we hoped.
No, and like in 2016, so Canadians are watching this. We're your other neighbors, the ones that are less talked about, and no one's trying to build a border wall with us, although maybe we should. I don't know.
Yeah.
But Canadians watch carefully. Our economic ties are tied to the U.S. We're each other's biggest trading partners, actually, Canada and U.S. between each other. So most Canadians are like, what the heck is going on in the US? Like, when 2016 happened, Canadians were just like shocked and horrified and didn't know what to do. Obama was popular here. And when Trump took over, they were just like, what happened? And I remember following it along. I think being evangelical in Canada, you pay a lot of attention to what's happening in the US because you hear about it nonstop through your evangelical sources, which are basically, it's Americanism pumped in through evangelical church stuff.
Christian nationalism. It's Christian nationalism. Yeah.
It's Christian nationalism. And I think, we're getting into the evangelical topic, but I think Canadian evangelicals are in denial about how much, like, hey, that Samaritan's Purse that you're doing in your church and all of our churches that's connected to the US, that Franklin Graham that leads that up, he loves Trump and supports him at every turn. Like, don't be like, oh, those weird, evangelicals in the US voted for Trump. Why? How? What? We're backing. The Canadian evangelicals are totally in that whole system without even an awareness sometimes of like what, because the nationalism message is not going to be played up here, right? Like, got to turn our nation for Jesus. It's not going to fly in Canada. So a lot of stuff is muted that you guys are hearing in evangelical churches. And so the Canadians are kind of in denial at how tied they are to the American event, how their evangelical churches are supporting and backing all of that and are completely tied into it.
That's such an interesting point, Gail. Yeah. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. So watching that 2016, moving to the US for me, that's my New Year's plan. And I'm excited to be with Nate. We have been long distance dating for 6 years and I love him. We have been married for a year, supposed to be moving down last year. It got tied up in red tape because it's hard to get a social security number, even when you're a citizen. So whatever they're saying about handing it out like candies and people voting, and all that is lies. It's lies. You can be a white woman with an American citizenship and not be able to get your SSN. Okay. Like, this is how bad it is. It's not easy. They make it extra complicated for no reason. And I've been through that over the last year. So I was apprehensive because I'm leaving my children behind. They're grown. They're both adults. I'm leaving my mom, leaving my sister, my nieces, nephews, my friends, my community is all here. Been in my job for the last dozen years. It's a big change for me. And I was having a lot of anxiety over change. I'm not good with change.
And everybody asks, why am I not the one moving to Canada?
Yeah.
And I ask myself that question all the time.
Yes, I bet you do.
There are reasons. And
I would go ahead and get your citizenship too if you can.
Yeah. You have something else to be anxious about now.
Yeah. So
Right.
moving here as an option, at least moving back to Canada is an option for the two of us, actually. And if we ever need to do that in the future. So that is helpful. But yeah, the anxiety over like I was already having and then watching those results and being like, this is what I'm coming into. This is what I'm trading Canada for. It was my whole system. When Nate and I stayed up with our friends watching the election till maybe 1:00 in the morning, 1:30 Eastern time. And then we just were seeing the whole situation crumble in front of us. We went from the numbers. I just kept running the numbers. I'm like, it could still work. It could still work. You're scribbling out this date. You're still counting these ones. You're like, okay, there's still enough. Mathematically, we're not eliminated. And then you get to the point where the clock ticks down and you're like, nope, that one is called. That one is called. We're out of states. And I hadn't officially been, at that 270 mark when we just shut it off. We were just all stunned and felt sick to our stomach. Nate just turned 40 on when as the results came in, and I didn't even wish him a happy 40th. We all said goodnight, and then I called him back. I was like, I'm so sorry, babe. A happy birthday, happy 40th. I didn't think to even say it to you. We were just all shook, and I'll add in like, I'm trying to think of why it was so stressful on my whole system and why I spent the next day calling Nate and we'd just cry on the phone together. But like, I saw what happened during the pandemic. And I saw what happened to Nate. And I saw what happened to Nate's family. I saw his relatives telling his 90-year-old Lola not to take walks at night because people were beating up Asian seniors because of the coronavirus. And I saw Nate breaking down crying a lot during the pandemic and dealing with Asian hatred. And it was Trump fueling this stuff. He was there going China virus with his hands and he was just fueling and stoking this. And then watching the repercussions of, and I would be like, Nate, just turn off the news. And he's like, I can't. And he's like, look, guy my age just got pushed into the subway, Asian man my age just got shoved into and died. And it was every day. It wasn't like these were like once a month scenarios. This was like a constant flow of violence. I mean, and he coming to visit me, stop in a rest stop in New York, upstate New York, and like have people make remarks because he's Asian and, just stuff that he hadn't. Yeah, that was like up. Everything kind of went up a level in terms of hatred. And I think I would have been less stressed out watching the election last night as a white woman had I not, knowing I'm going to a blue state, and that if I missed, because Nate and I had a miscarriage this past year, and I'm in Canada, so there was no care is fine. I didn't have to worry about anything. But it makes me think of all the women who are dying, who have a miscarriage and can't get proper care in the US. And I'm going to a blue state. So the stress, I think, had I not been with Nate, had I not been with someone where the impact was right there, right in front of me with the Trump candidacy and how that played out, I don't think the stress level in my body would have rocketed so high. But I'm like, damn, not again. No, like that was a lot to recover from.
Doesn't it feel like we're like collectively as a nation getting back together with our abusive ex? It's just
God.
It's how it feels.
I literally
in my nervous system.
I wrote my first Substack. I haven't even published it yet, but it's titled "America Needs to Break Up with Their Abusive Spouse." Like, and then this is how I feel about it. I'm like, and I guess the question in my head, and I'd love to hear all of your thoughts on this, and maybe I'm jumping too far ahead because I do kind of want to know where all your nervous systems are at. I know mine. I'll get back to my thoughts on how, what we do with the people around us, but and how we regroup and what does this look like. But I know, just going back to how I was feeling, I remember being like, am I overblowing this? I didn't sleep well last night because we stayed up too late, and I'm crying nonstop. And like, I get home and I look at my 24-year-old Canadian son, white boy, and he's like, Mom, I've felt sick to my stomach all day. Like I've just felt ill. Canadian kid, not planning to move here with me, by the way. Not planning to move to the US. And he's just like, I'm sick to my stomach. Like all day long, I have not been able to get this out. And I felt so validated, like that I wasn't blowing things out of proportion. If my kid that doesn't even live in the US and is not planning to move there, his nervous system is in a state of like wanting to throw up all day from what just happened. He's politically informed. He's a kid that follows politics, has been involved in politics too, even here locally. I think that made me break down crying more, which I needed. I think I dissociate sometimes, and I could be good at that in crisis. And I see people doing that, and I think we need to some extent. It's a lot to take in. So I see people turning to being intellectual, to looking up statistics, to just tuning out everything, and all that. I think there's a place. Like you need to function, you need to do your jobs, but there's that balance between still needing to process through eventually and needing to give yourself space to not be totally overwhelmed to the point where you can't function. So it's like weighing out where you are in that. How much you need to distance yourself from everything, how you need to go to a different level than your heart to just not just feel suffocated and crushed versus how much you're going to need to just let in the reality and feel your feelings because they're legitimate. And I think my son was one of those things for me that was like, oh, I'm not that emotional, crazy woman that I've been told I am my whole life. Like this is if a white boy is going, this is gross and my stomach is hurting looking at this, then I'm not overreacting.
Right.
And how are you guys handling your nervous systems, and how is your body handling? Did you guys bawl your eyes out? Did you go into a state of numbness? What was your physical reaction to this whole thing over the last 2 days?
Yeah, I was numb for the first couple days. Like I didn't cry. I didn't feel anything. I saw the map going red, and like Scott said, I couldn't do 2016 again on my body and my nervous system. So I put on Brooklyn Nine-Nine and I watched that while I went in and out of sleep, and I would wake up and reload election results on my phone. And that was as much as I could do. It kept confirming that we are in fact headed in a very bad direction. And so once they called Pennsylvania, I was like, I gotta go to bed. Like I can't even be in this half in and out anymore. So I went up to bed. I surprisingly got a little bit of sleep. I wasn't really expecting to sleep at all, but I did sleep some. I think because I was just numb. Like I was like, I don't feel anything. This is just like, these are the facts. And I went to school and I taught. I didn't teach very well that day, but I did my best. And then it wasn't until like 2 days later I was texting. So like yesterday. I was texting with my friend Joe. He's gay, and we were just talking together about like new identities. Like I find myself in a new identity than I was in 2016, and it's like I experienced 2016 as a woman, and I experienced this one as a queer person, as a queer woman, and it feels like I'm going through it all over again. Like I don't know, I did the initial like, wow, this is terrible to be a woman in a Trump world, right? And we did that in 2016. And now I feel like there's something new to my identity that I have to like figure out how this fits into this America that I live in. And especially thinking about like all the work that we've done to like overcome this internalized homophobia that we have, to then be like, oh my God, it's not just in the church, it's not just in myself, it's everywhere in this country. And what do we do with that? And how do I don't know, like how do I embrace who I am in a country that doesn't want me here, you know?
Yeah. Right.
And I'm sure that like you feel some of this too, like Nate and Scott as Asian Americans, or like queer people, women, anyone of color. It's like we all feel this in a different way. And yeah, so anyway, I was texting my friend Joe about that, and that's when I started crying, and then I cried for like 24 hours. So it was sort of like being numb and then let it all out. And now I'm just like, I'm going to sit with the grief for as long as my body feels like it needs to. And when I feel like I can go to work, I'm like, get to work for the country, like I'm going to do that. But until then, I'm going to just like let myself be really sad and angry and confused and shocked and all the feelings, because they're not going anywhere. So we have to feel them. We have to process them. Yeah. So yeah, that's where my body is at the moment.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
I think for me, it didn't hit right away. I think that, that the numbness, that sense of despair kind of just was what I felt myself sitting in for a little while. I only got like a couple hours of sleep. Actually, you know what? Anxiety was where my body was at. It was in this really incredibly high state of anxiety because I couldn't sleep. I think at different points I dozed off, and then I would wake up again and my heart rate would jump up. I wear a smartwatch, and I wear it to sleep, and I would look at it and my heart rate's going up into 90, and I'm like, I'm in bed. Why am I at 90? So I think I got about 2.5 hours of sleep that night. Went into work, and it was heavy. We had scheduled to bring in therapy dogs into the office, and they were downstairs. So I took some pictures for our social media. And there was a girl that walked up to saw the dog, and she got excited. She's like, "Oh my God, a doggy." And as soon as she said that, she just fell to her knees and started bawling. Oh. I almost lost it. So I had to swallow, because I'm like, okay, no, I'm at work right now. She's a student. She could do what she needs to, but like let me stay focused. But so I swallowed that down, and it wasn't until after I got home and Gail called me and asked me, "How are you?" That's when it hit, and I broke down. Had a decent 20-minute session where I just couldn't hold anything back anymore. But I got a little sense of comfort from my former boss, who I still work at the same place. So he was wandering around the building, and he looked way just out of it. Like everybody in our building looked really out of it. And, he said he went and talked to one of the deans who was really broken about the whole thing. And they sat together for a few minutes, and then he came by my office, and I just, he's an older gentleman, and very distinguished. He's got this kind of air about him. But he said something to me that if it had come from anyone else, I probably would have challenged him on it. But I asked him, what are your thoughts? What are your words of encouragement, in the midst of all of this? And he said, well, I don't have much, but I can say, as a country, we came through it once before, and I don't have reason to believe that we can't again, even though all signs are pointing to this time will be a whole lot worse. And he said, I gained that encouragement just by looking around us. Like in this building, we are training the next generation of people who are going to take the fight to Trump. Like in the last few years, we had record admission of women to law school. The last graduating class was the first time that our law school had a majority of women and non-white people graduate. So these are the lawyers that are entering the field. So that's where he takes encouragement.
It's a pretty activist based university law school. So they've done a lot to challenge and push back over the years. You're in an environment that's sort of taking on this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And he made a little quip after that. He's like, we're doing good work here. This is what we're moving towards. We've got great students. I'm really encouraged by what I see from them. And then he said, we're doing important stuff. We're not selling pillows. I'm like, oh, you're funny, Rob.
Hilarious.
But yeah, I guess for me, I've been in this weird sort of anxious state. There are a lot of things that I'm just not able to enjoy. Like I'm one of those people that tries to detach, and I before I got on our Zoom call with our friends to watch the returns, before anything was known, and I was still sort of riding that feeling of like, okay, I'm going to be cautiously optimistic about all of this. I didn't want to. I think something in me was like, yeah, you don't want to watch this. So I sat down and I watched Jurassic World Dominion. It's just a pathetic movie, but Jurassic Park was one of my favorite movies as a kid. So I so I sat down and I watched it. I was been watching, bits of it here and there. And so I finished the movie, and then I got on online with our friends. And that was when I felt like I could finally put myself in that state. But then after everything went down, I find myself wanting to go into those places and distract myself. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying, but it's just, I'm finding myself dissatisfied by the things that I normally would dive into. My ADHD manifests in hyper-focusing in my little hobbies and my interests. And I just can't.
I have no concentration either. Yeah. I've noticed that my concentration levels have dropped so much.
And there's no baseball on TV now, so I'm a little I'm trying to get into hockey, but the Habs are doing awful. And it looks like we lost Scott.
Come back, Scott.
Hopefully Scott can come back, because I just made a baseball comment.
I know. He just missed your baseball joke.
Yeah.
Oh, he's back. He's back.
There he is.
You missed Nate's baseball comment. He was very sad that.
No, I was listening, but then my phone shut down.
It was upset at when you heard Nate start talking about baseball, your phone was just like, that's
no,
it.
Can't.
We won the World Series, Nate.
It rejects Yankee talk. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, and it just isn't like I'm trying to watch, YouTube videos about, how Mariano Rivera did what he did with that cutter. And I'm like, it's not enjoyable. I can't get into it. My brain is just not latching on to those things. Then when I notice that my brain isn't latching on to those things, my anxiety ramps up and I can feel my heart jumping into my throat. Anyway, that's where I'm at.
It's not going to make you feel any better, but as a Dodger fan who just won the World Series, there's no joy anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, you had it for like a day.
Yeah, it was a nice day.
Yeah.
Couple days.
How is your system, if you want to respond, Scott? How have you been feeling emotionally since all of this? How's the last 3 days? How's your system been responding to?
Yeah, so 2016, I definitely shed tears, but this time I'm just pissed. I'm cussing people out online. I'm ready to punch someone, and I'm just ready to fight because I'm heartbroken. I feel people are going to suffer. People are going to die because of this. And kind of like what Maggie was saying at the beginning, I'm in a place of privilege. I live in California. Oh, and a quick note, I have a friend who works in the California Attorney General's office. She's like a lead attorney. And she was over at my house Wednesday. And she had to take a work call on her computer. And I kind of eavesdropped. But it was comforting because they have plans in place to fight Trump at every step already. they've studied 2025, Project 2025, and they're all pissed and they're all terrified, but they're like, we're ready for this.
Yeah.
And so that made me feel good. And that kind of led me to be, I'm going to fight too, because fuck this country.
Yeah.
I have no hope.
There's a lot of blue state leaders that have been issuing statements and holding press conferences going, we're ready for this.
Yeah.
We're going to protect our people.
Yeah. I mean, it's still going to suck.
Of course, that doesn't do anything for us down here in red states, but glad y'all have that.
Yeah, well, you can come over here
Yeah.
for a little while if you need to. But yeah, so I'm just, I think I blew past tears and crying this time to just like, we just have to fuck shit up because it's going to be bad. I only have a few former students who are Christian-y still on my Facebook feed because I got rid of all of them back like 10, 15 years ago. But some of them were posting, like praise God and shit. And this one kid, he's not a kid, he's like 35 now, but he responded to me. He's like, hey man, I love you, and I still remember the poems that you had us read, and then you inspired us to write some poetry, and I still have it, and I just want you to know I love you. And I was like, if you still have those poems, burn them, because you didn't learn shit from me. If you voted for Trump, none of that made any difference in your life, because that is completely contrary to art and beauty and truth that I was trying to teach you. So yeah, burn those poems. Go fuck yourself. I don't care if you love me.
Yeah. How did he respond to that?
He sent me this long message, like begging me to like meet with him and talk with him, and I haven't responded. I'm just going to stew for a while.
No.
He wants coffee with you.
Exactly.
Yeah. He's not going to get coffee.
No.
Something, Maggie, that you were talking about in your own journey that I was thinking about and then forgot to even mention it. But yeah, the difference between 2016 and now, and who I am as a person, and how I'm relating to the election of Trump then versus now. Aside from the fact that we know from experience now versus we had theories, a lot of which were borne out back then. But I think for me, who I was back then was someone who had not fully embraced my racial identity and what that meant here in this country. I was still sort of in process with a lot of that. Not that I'm not still in process now, but it was something that hadn't really been unlocked. And honestly, it wasn't until the pandemic that really became front. What does it mean to be Asian American was sort of the question that then I was faced with during the pandemic. But I hadn't been met with that, and maybe that just says something about the privilege that I've experienced throughout my life, or maybe even just a trauma response to hiding and suppressing my racial identity for so long. And then the other thing too is now in process. When I talked on your podcast, Maggie, about my own sexual identity. And as a queer person now I have to process what this means to me. What do I like make those moves to come out in this environment outside of our little, evangelical podcasting world? Or do I just, are you people the only ones that I share that aspect of my identity with? Who am I in the face of this? Do I just go back into these spaces with the kind of energy that I did following 2016, or am I just too tired and am I only going to be applauding the quote unquote young ones who do have the energy? I don't know what this is going to look like. I just have more questions.
Yeah, Nate, I feel that so much. I've found myself in the last couple of days saying like that I have this feeling, not that this, I don't want this to be true, but that I have this feeling like, well, I'm glad I haven't come out to too many people, because now I can just put it back in a box and I don't have to like embrace this part of me. But that's not how I want to be. That's not,
not what we want for everyone else.
Not exactly what I want for everyone else.
Exactly.
And so like, of course I don't want to do that. But there is this piece of me that's like, I'll just put it back in a box. I haven't taken it out too far anyway, so that's fine. So yeah, I feel that with you, and I'm sure other people out there feel that too. And to what you were saying about your Asian American identity and your Asian identity, Nate, I was thinking about you because we talked about that at the end of our episode together. And that's something for you that has been, you've embraced this part of yourself more since 2016. And so it's not that it wasn't there before, but it's there for you in a new way. And so, yeah, I've been thinking about you and wondering how that's feeling for you this time around, because it is new for you.
Yeah, I think given everything that happened during the pandemic, during the previous Trump administration, I think there is a part of me that has that, like, it's weird because like I have this renewed vigor, this sense of I'm like Scott, I'm gonna go,
Fight.
Jet Li on someone's ass, but I won't, because I stopped taking karate when I was in 5th grade, so but I don't know. I think as far as my Asian identity, I think the other thing too is like I'm frustrated with my fellow Asian Americans as well. Sure, by and large, as a voting bloc, we voted for Harris, but that percentage slipped, and I want to talk to those 4% that switched over. Where are you? Like
what happened?
Yeah. Like how after everything that went down, after Kung Flu and Chinese virus, after the vilifying of Asian people, how, like, what was it here?
Right.
What was it about Trump this time?
Oh man, I saw Scott getting into it with another Asian on his wall today.
Well, what is it about Harris?
Yeah, that's the other thing. That's actually,
Right.
that's a better question,
Harris
Scott. What is it about Harris?
Couldn't get behind because she's South Asian.
Yeah.
And I think, we were talking earlier about, well, and then I want to come back to being mad at because I'm really mad at white women in this too.
Please,
so I want to hold that and come back to that. But I think it's really important. We were talking about like where to place the blame, and we want to try to figure it out. And I think that we have to acknowledge that the only thing that Harris really did wrong was being a woman and was being Black, because America hates Black women. We don't like women. We don't like Black people, and we really hate Black women. And I say we as America, not me, not us. Like I'm, just to make that clear, so nobody pulls that out of context. But I think it's like, at least in 2016, we could say, well, Hillary won the popular vote, so the people did speak, but it's the Electoral College that made it so that she didn't win. Whatever. Trump won the popular vote. Like, we don't even have that to stand on. And I think it's like, I realize that there are bigger, geopolitical things that are happening. There is a genocide happening that many people like didn't vote for her because of that, I think. But I think when it comes down to it, she didn't get as many votes because she's Black and Asian and a woman. And like, we don't like Black people. We don't like women, and we can't see Asian Americans, like to what you were saying on my podcast, Nate. So anyway, I think it's just really important. We want to find the blame, but I think that America's pretty racist and sexist, and that's where the blame is. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to jump in on the white woman comment, so I was looking for the segue in, because when we mentioned, and we're 3 white women on this chat.
Yes.
And the reality is we brought up that the minority communities had a role in this. This was, a comment that we're talking, okay? But like, let's be real. Let's be real about who made the difference in this election. It was white people.
For sure.
It was totally white people and white women, majority voting against our own interests. And look, the needle may have moved in other communities a little, but the fact that we cannot convince our sisters, our moms, our grandmas, our brothers, our family members, the fact that they have watched, I think this is where my head is at. So I'm coming into the U.S. as a Canadian who has just assumed citizenship last year, and I'm like, I don't understand this identity, this new identity marker I'm going to carry, because white women are voting against themselves, and I don't understand. I'm trying to wrap my head around this. Like, how does this happen? What is going on? And I'm still trying to process that we have
we hate each other. We genuinely do. As women, we hate each other. And we really genuinely and I say we, again, I don't hate my fellow woman, but I understand internalized misogyny, and I understand the way that it works, and the idea that we feel safer when we keep other women from usurping power. We just do. It's all the way down into our DNA. We feel safer when we prop up structures of power. And white women have been doing this solidly since the beginning. We do this. Our grandmothers did this. Our mothers did this. Our great grandmothers did this. They prop up men and structures of patriarchy to keep ourselves safe. And I'm trying to hold some sort of compassion for that, because it is, at this point, I feel like it's part of the trauma we carry in our bones from abuse, from men, from, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of this. We have to individually deconstruct it. And I've been hard at work at that in myself. I've been hard at work at that with my daughters. I've been hard at work with that with my mother. I've spent hours trying to talk this through with her. And what comes back every time is these women are all the way down into their bones terrified of not propping up men. If they don't prop up men, the violence that they will experience. And it's a real threat. It is something they are afraid of. And I think women all over are afraid of the men in their lives not thinking that they have been propped up properly, the way that they feel they are entitled to.
To back you up, I think the advertisements that were coming out during the election with women secretly looking at each other and those, hey, you can vote however you want and your husband doesn't need to know in the ballot. Like the fact that these advertisements were coming through and were being shared around so much.
Right. And the backlash to them.
Mm-hmm.
The backlash to them shows us a lot.
Yeah.
That men were like, this is cheating.
They were literally saying that the women were cheating if they on them. It's the same thing. They didn't vote the way they were being told to vote. It was interesting to watch that, and it really backs up the point that you're making, Jessica, about the amount of women that are in fear of their own safety. I know as a woman in Canada who had a conservative ex who I was married to at one point, what it was like to be verbally, like it got brought up all the time that I voted for the wrong person and making fun of it. And and even if it wasn't directly him saying it to me, it was like saying it around me or online, or like kind of letting me know that I was propping up the wrong side and I wasn't voting the way he wanted me to vote. And there are men that are way more violent and controlling than the situation that I was in. And seeing those advertisements and watching how men responded to the idea that women were not siding with who they wanted was frightening to just see in front of me and realize that's a thing.
Well, and I want to make it clear that there's, for the vast majority of these women who felt like this core fear, they actually aren't going to experience more violence personally themselves if they were to have rooted this out and worked this through. Because those of us that work this through, this deeply internalized misogyny, this fear that it's just like deep in there. It's not conscious. You're not thinking about it consciously. You're experiencing it in your nervous system. Once we root it out, we realize that once we push back against structures of power, things change and it gets better. But we have to do that work first of calming our nervous system, of teaching ourselves that we have power in ourselves, that when we exercise it, we are actually safer. When we actually take care of other women, when we actually vote in the vulnerable women's best interest, because a lot of us are actually not vulnerable. We're not. And that is the thing that makes us angry.
And it needs to be mentioned, 92% of Black women, the highest. Look, I'm just going to say it.
They've done the work.
If I need to look at one demographic and say, how do they think? Because this is going to tell me, this is going to be a demographic that's going to help guide me in my thought process about who the vulnerable people are and which party is going to be safest for vulnerable people. it's Black women that I'm going to turn to. There is no other group that I'm going to look at and go, they have carried the country. They have saved the country. They have literally fought for everyone nonstop.
We have built 92%. This on
there
their
is no
backs.
group that is a monolith, but 92% is a solid resent. And like, I couldn't invite one of my Black friends on this podcast because I'm like, you guys have done enough. You guys have literally done enough
for us to do the work that they have done. They've gone before us. They've done it. They've worked so hard.
I just felt like we already said this and did this in 2016. And it was like,
know.
oh my God, now we realize we were idiots. And now we realize the work we need to do and we're going to do the work. And I thought we were convincing our family and friends and the people we went to church with so long ago. Like, I thought we were making some change. I thought people were leaving church. I thought young people were rising up. And yet here we are. And how?
I think this is I had this question and I was talking with Nate in bed this morning about this. When I woke up, I was like, the political question I have, because there's a big piece of me that is grappling with the idea that we're in a bad marriage. And I was in a 20-year marriage that was really harmful for me. And I did it's not you, it's me. Meaning the only person I can change is me. So let me figure out what I can compromise, what I can do, pray more, submit more, whatever it needs to be to make this work. And I hung on for 20 years inside a toxic relationship because I always was taught, you look at yourself first, be the change you want to see in the world, right? Like, fix yourself first. But there comes a point where you look at it and you go, actually, the only way that I stay here is if I keep cutting off pieces of who I am. The good pieces of who I am. The only way this works is if I keep taking the good things about me and putting them aside and cutting them off to make you happy so that you can control. And I feel like a lot of white women were in that situation with the people around us where it's like, we've had a lot of years to talk and have these conversations and have done the work of trying to see, girls, come on, family members, look at this. And a lot of us are still not at that. I'm watching on Facebook, my community, my people that I know, I'm watching people plan to flee from red states for the sake of their trans kids. I'm watching people who are in queer relationships in red states trying to flee. People from Idaho, people from Texas. I've been seeing this in my feed. People scared. And then I'm also watching people being like, I am done having this conversation with, I put up an unfriend me if you voted for Trump. And that conversation around, do we just be like, I can't debate with you anymore about this. Like, I have done the work. I have sat with you. I have had conversations with you. You clearly don't care. Like, I think of my 20-year marriage and I'm like, how much time did I waste cutting off me when there was no desire for growth or change or movement? None. And I think a lot of people aren't there yet. So that was a conversation I was having with Nate. I'm like, I'm watching people say, make an effort. We need to stay connected with people. We need to be able to convince and change. And I'm like, but where's that line where you're just like, we are done attempting this. We're going to focus on our own now. We're going to focus on caring for each other because you guys are clearly just interested in harming and causing harm and fueling hatred. And like, these conversations are not working. And you had some good thoughts. You were like, we were having that. What do you do? Do you stay engaged? Do you not stay engaged?
I think,
I liked what you had to say to me. You're looking at your own family. You're kind of pulling from that as thoughts on.
And I think, I think for me, I'm looking at this as, now it's going to be case by case basis, and each of you assess how much work you've already put in, how much work you think you're willing to do, but to ask us as a group, when we've done this already for 8 years at least, some of us even more, I think ultimately, we need to take a look at ourselves and our relationships and what you are capable of doing and what you think you have. If you have put in effort, then maybe it's time for you to walk away and just take care of yourself and
your community.
Hang out with the people who are out here
needing support.
Needing support and caring for each other.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then there are those of you who maybe upon self-reflection, you realize, I haven't had conversations. I just walked away because I saw my friends going over there and I felt angry too, but I didn't actually try to talk to my mom, my dad, my relatives, whoever. I didn't do that. Then maybe because you didn't have those conversations, those people might be waiting for you, unconsciously waiting for you to give them permission to start learning. maybe for some of us, we've made attempts, but in the past we were just straight up angry. And this time those relationships have evolved, and those people on the other side there, our dynamic with them has shifted and changed as we've become more well versed, or been able to become more able to articulate our position better. Maybe we can revisit some of those conversations. But I think ultimately this is really up to you as individuals, and for anyone out there to say, hey, we all need to get back to the table. We need to listen to what the other side has to say. No, I don't think we can make blanket statements like that anymore. I think we are way, way past all of that. I think ultimately, again, it is really entirely up to each individual and what they think they're capable of.
I appreciated that, because I was hearing people being like, and I was feeling this, just cut them off. Like, you don't sit at the table at Nazis. I'm sorry. There comes a point where you go like, you've stated clearly what your position is and that you don't want to change. And we've had these conversations and it's over time. We're past discussion time. I don't want to engage this. I don't need this. Like Scott unfriending all the people in the past. Mm-hmm. I've done that. I've done the purge. I've been like, this is not helpful in my life. And then I've watched other people talk about engagement. And I really like what you were saying, because I think we do need to ask the question of where we are located on this process of have we done anything beforehand, before deciding the person is unwilling to listen? Have we had the conversations? Mm-hmm. Because there is no formula. It isn't cut everyone off or stay engaged. It is going to be which people and what have you done? And I think as an ex-evangelical community, and I'm going to speak to that because that's where we're all of our podcasts touch on a lot of that. But I think a lot of us, when we walked out of church, we had that be the change you want to see in your church mm-hmm. moments where we were like speaking out, trying to make things more egalitarian, trying to challenge power structures, trying to point out this thing and that thing and see if we could change mm-hmm. things from within. And we gravitated to people on bloggers, whatever, that were trying to do that. And we were trying to share their work and be like, guys, look at this, check this out. And we made an attempt before we left to, when people saw us disappear, hopefully they didn't go, what happened? They went, I saw them constantly trying to get people's attention, but this is probably what drove them away. Mm-hmm. That's why they're not here. It's not, rather than just fleeing and no one knew what happened. And like, I do think there is an effort everyone needs to try and make. If you love your community, if this is your community that you've been in for years and years, whether it's your family or church community, it makes sense that on your way out, before you decide it's not worth it for the people you love and care about, that you would try and have and do something about it and try and make a change. Yeah. But there does come a point where all of us, I think that none of us are in church, where we said to ourselves, you know what? We did that. We actually did as much as we could do emotionally, mentally. We put in the talks. We know that the best thing we could do for our community from here is actually to walk away from it. The best thing we could do for these people from this point is for them to see that we can't support it anymore. That like, we're not going to invest our time and energy here because it's not wanted mm-hmm. and it's not helpful here. And the shock of watching people walk out for them is maybe the only thing they're going to hear at this point from us that can make them even possibly consider anything. And maybe they're still not ready, but it is the last thing. That's the last statement we can make to them. So I think leaving the evangelical community and the putting in the work before you leave and then being like, there's a point where you got to just walk away. I think that's the question, or that's the answer I'm coming to from mm-hmm. my conversation with you this morning. It was just sort of like, what do we do? Do we just focus on our community needs us? Our community's hurting. I'm watching people beg trans people not to detransition or take their lives even. And it's disgusting mm-hmm. and it's heartbreaking. And it's like, we need to support each other. So pouring all the effort into people who are gloating and like, haha, F you, we won. Like, what's that going to accomplish at this point? Their hatred is so loud and proud. And we've had the conversations before. There's no point. Right. But for the ones who are like, oh, actually, I've never had a conversation with my sister. Mm-hmm. Actually, I've never had a conversation with my mom about this. Yeah. Oh, I assumed it's going to go bad, so I don't even bother. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that's the place where you maybe want to start before you start shutting everything down at that point. And
mm-hmm. Do y'all remember 2016 when, Trump wins, and then there was all these think pieces, like basically shaming us progressive people, like, oh, you're all in your little bubbles, you need to reach out across and like get to know why these people are so, and so we did that, and now then they just hit us again, like, no, fuck you, like mm-hmm. we reached out, we've tried to figure out why you're so unhappy as rural white people, and why you hate us.
Oh, and they kept saying, "Can't you just be respectful of the president? Like, why can't you just be respectful?
Nope.
Respectful of the. Scott, you had an argument.
Well,
with someone.
that guy's a weirdo. He's like this Japanese old guy who says he's very like Zen, who's saying we need to respect the outcome. And I'm like, no, fuck the outcome.
Yeah.
And fuck.
I saw that even on your wall there were other Asians jumping in.
No, I don't even know who the fuck that guy is. I was about to unfriend him, but I kind of want to yell at him some more. So he's been my I'm just beating on him.
It started all over again.
Yeah.
We're back.
No, we're back to this.
Yeah.
It was nice to see a community reaching out to their own.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this is I'm not taking it well when men are going, white women. Black women can tell me whatever they want, and I'm listening, and I'm here to listen to their shit. Like I'm gonna sit and I'm gonna shut up.
Yeah, because they did their job.
They did it. But like any men that want to go women. I'm like, it's hard. It's a hard. It
goes like this. The biggest group that voted for Trump is men, white men.
Yeah.
The next group is white women, and so on, and it goes down like that. But the biggest and quite a bit bigger than the white women is white men. So,
and the ones who have the power and the ones who have the ability to threaten the safety of others.
They can kiss my ass.
Yeah. So I do appreciate watching people address their own. And so my encouragement to white women is continue to take on other white women, like continue to tackle your own internalized misogyny. I love the stuff that you had to say, Jessica. Thanks. I think it's some good words for us to listen to about rooting it out of us. And hopefully that gives permission for other women watching. I think. So I've had, I don't know if this is a question I had for all of you. Have you had evangelicals reaching? Scott, you said you had one reaching out to you. I have had evangelicals liking my stories who are from unaffirming churches, and they're liking my posts right after election about how we can agree to disagree on cookies or coffee or whatever, but we're not going to do this with racism. We're not going to do this with homophobia. And they're liking my stuff. And I'm like, wait a second, you're still part of that church? I didn't even write back, but I'm like, this is hilarious. This has got to be a joke. But it's like that guilt of like knowing internally you're backing up these systems that are harming people, and you don't want to admit you haven't taken a stand against Trump personally, and your family that you love is all Trump, and you're in a church that supports Trump, and now you're gonna show me that you're one of the good ones because you liked my story about this. And I'm like, really though? Like the amount of reaching out on these things from people still evolved in the evangelical zygote, where that's the homophobia is like, it's there all the time. I don't even know. It makes me angry when you guys are talking about wanting to punch someone. I feel the anger in me just rising up, and I'm like, no, leave that place. Get out.
Yeah, you want to support these statements of solidarity with these marginalized communities, but you're standing in solidarity with an organization that's harming these marginalized communities that you claim to be in, agreement that
if you're from Hillsong, don't like my stories. Just don't.
I think the thing that is so hard for me is this idea that they're like a very condescending attitude that I'm getting from all of the pages that I see conservatives on is this, well, you may be upset, but I am actually taking care of you. I am actually looking out for your best interest. I actually voted for the guy that's going to make things better, so you'll thank me later. And I just feel like screaming because this cognitive dissonance is too loud for me. I can't take it.
I saw someone posting that groceries were cheaper already. I'm like, he hasn't even taken power. Like, this is all in your brain. Right. Like, you have
this is all in
forget cognitive dissonance. You're living in your imaginary world. And like, how do I even talk to you?
If they are, it's because corporations are banking on the fact that Trump is going to bump up their bottom line. Like they're going to get more money and they're going to have record profits. And so they're like, woohoo. But that is not solving the problem that caused us to get here in the first place, which is that they are allowed to have profits that are insane. Yeah. So anyway, capitalism is one of my new pet peeves, but my new big ones.
I don't know how we get people to understand that trying to become the billionaire is not attainable, that the more billionaires are rising, that more working class is suffering. The fact that there's super PACs. Do you guys realize how many billions were invested in this election compared to previous? billions were invested into marketing. How many anti-trans commercials were running nonstop for like such a small group of people? How much money was poured into hating one tiny little community that's not impacting anyone's life just to drive up
I
here?
was going to say that earlier, is the amount of effort that we think we've put into talking about internalized misogyny, talking about to white women about how to deconstruct. That same amount of effort we've been putting in, they have launched a counter campaign of anti-feminism, and it is working. The trad wife movement is very popular amongst women my daughter's age. These 22 to 25-year-olds are just eating this up like it's going out of style.
It's so interesting, I guess, because we're like, I'm never in places in the country that are even remotely interested in the trad wife movement. I mean,
these
like,
are not the young women in your life. Your female coworkers.
I'm female in my 40s, so I'm on TikTok, and I have worked at my algorithm. Right, I watch very specific things. I click on very specific. I follow very specific people, and at least once a day, I get pushed to watch Ballerina Farms.
I don't know what that is.
Oh my God, Gail, look it up. It's terrible.
You don't know who Ballerina Farms is?
I don't want to watch this, I'm guessing. No, I don't think I want to know from watching the two of your faces. I'm like,
it's huge. It's huge news.
God.
And yeah, I think that's why it ends up in my feed, is I wanted to find out what was going on, and I went and watched some. And but she is a Mormon wife who is Miss America, Miss USA, or what? Mrs. America? Anyway, beautiful, absolutely gorgeous, Juilliard trained ballerina who married young and started having babies immediately. She was one of the only ballerinas at Juilliard at the time that was pregnant, I think, in the history of the school, until she dropped out, of course. And now they have, what, eight little children?
I can't keep track.
7? I can't keep track. She's probably pregnant again, but she's constantly having, and they're all little. They're under the age of 10. And
it's like the new Duggard poster people. Is this what this is?
But she is stunningly beautiful. They have a big ranch in Utah. Chickens, cows.
Yeah. And she claims this is like what she wants to be doing, this is her choice, but it's
so amazing. These women that get online, get such big algorithms, have millions of followers, and they act, but they have a curated, presented vision of what this femininity they're selling is and how beautiful and lovely this life is. And it's a staged, like they're making the money and they're able to do this. But you try and do
this is working. It's working with young women, and it is radicalizing them for the anti-feminist movement every day. And they genuinely just think, because again, these are my daughters. I talk to them all the time. This is what they're interested in seeing. They love the beautiful dresses. They love these women's hairstyles that they pick. They love their natural makeup. They love their baking. They love their cute husbands, because they're newlyweds. Almost all of them are newlyweds or young moms and young wives.
Yeah, because that's not going to last.
Are these the same women saying it's so hard to be married when they get married at 20? It's so hard. It's so hard. But, the Lord is helping me even though it's so hard. Yeah.
It's a whole aesthetic, though. It's more than just, and so the aesthetic is incredibly attractive, and so then you get radicalized from there. So yeah, so as much work as we have done, they've been doing on the other side, and writing books for the older moms who aren't as into the whole. I mean, my sisters-in-law have been pushing these books on me, how patriarchy is destroying us all, these kinds of books.
How patriarchy is destroying us all? You mean how feminism is destroying us all?
Yeah. Yes, that's what I meant. How feminism is destroying us all, and how pushing back against patriarchy will destroy us all. I think that's the subtitle of the book I was looking at. But anyway.
Yeah. I think something that I've thought about that kind of feels like it ties in with this trad wife thing is this feeling like these terrifying messages that we used to hear from the pulpit that I, since deconstructing and leaving, I could say like, okay, these are just like those white evangelical men behind a pulpit. But now watching Trump get elected again, it feels like, oh, that's not just my old pastor or your old pastor or someone who's still a pastor. That's what a lot of the country thinks. And I think watching the trad wife movement, I've had a lot of similar feelings like, oh, this wasn't just something that was specific to this brand of Christianity that we all grew up in. This is something that's like catching on. And that feels very triggering to me. Like, we did the work to deconstruct these ideas and leave these systems of belief. And yet the country, the world that we're living in is mirroring itself, or is mirroring these evangelical spaces that we were in ways that feel really scary.
Because they work really hard to make it pretty. And that's the thing that I think is the hardest thing for people to understand, is that liberals aren't trying to make liberalism pretty. We're not working on that. We're interested in amplifying everybody's voices, allowing people to be diverse, to be different. We're amplifying people who are drag queens, who are, and that's weird looking. It's not an aesthetic that people are like, oh, I mean, I think it's wonderful and I celebrate it every time I see it.
But it took a while to go from normativity to seeing something completely different than you, and going from that's weird to those are people. I'm curious. Yeah. Like, I want to get to know. Right. And then, oh, that's beautiful. Like, it takes a while to learn and undo your own assumptions based on what you've been afraid of, what you've been told to be afraid of
what you think is pretty and what you think is attractive and what you think is sweet and adorable. Like, and so when they are harkening back to this 1950s version of what is cute, what is sweet, what is adorable, and just like pulling people into that, and then adding on to it that this is also holy and godly and right and good. We're not talking about nice and pretty, just good. When that changes, then you have people. So as fast as those of us have deconstructed these bubbles that were very small when we were in them, they were very insular little worlds. I felt like my world was so small growing up. And we deconstructed that, and we're thinking, and we're watching all the people that were with us, like at least I'd say 65 to 80% of the people that I grew up with in this bubble have deconstructed out of it. But as fast as they, so my mind was thinking, hallelujah, this is going to die. This whole thought process is going to just die because we're all leaving it, right? There's nobody propping it up. What I didn't anticipate was them rebranding and finding a whole new demographic bigger than those of us that left. So not only is it not getting smaller, it's growing. And that is...
I mean, if I'm going to give any stats to try and encourage, because it's a depressing just reality, Trump did not gain any more of the popular vote than last time.
Yeah, I know.
He didn't.
Yeah.
It was the other side that lost votes. So there's that to consider. I also think, when we talk, Jessica, what you said about how it's in our DNA, because Maggie, you were mentioning how, we came out of this and we're looking at the world having the same, being interested in what we in our little world got out of, and now they're caring about it. But I think your point earlier, Jessica, about how the US was built on patriarchy. The US was built on white supremacy. It was built on wealthy people having, outsized influence. And if you look at Christianity, if you look at the voting and what happened, Christians have an outsized vote compared to the people who are not Christians in society, in political positions of power. And they Trump's base is still with the religious, especially the religious white people.
Absolutely.
It is still it's the Protestants and the white Catholics, white Protestants, white Catholics, top of that list. Jewish people did not vote for Trump. They did not.
No.
These are the white people in power in Christianity who have linked themselves up to secular culture, and secular culture likes white supremacy and loves patriarchy and has forever. And the Christian movement went, marriage, this works well together. This keeps us in power as Christians, and that's what we want. So we don't need them even to come to church. We just need to indoctrinate them into patriarchy. And I often think of evangelical churches and how they're bleeding out of people who cared, who had empathy, who wanted to see us be more inclusive, care about women, care about queer people, and how those people left. But that made the churches have less opposition to the patriarchy and queerphobia and white supremacy. It made a more insular culture. And then what happened is secular people were seeing the church, if they had those values of hatred, the church actually was a community that made sense to them, where they can be embraced. If the liberal people around them were disgusted by their views, the church could accept them. And I think the pandemic probably drew in a lot of Americans that were Christian by tradition, friend that maybe didn't go to church, and we're like, here's a community where I can be Trump loving and be surrounded by, people who embrace my values of fearing the immigrant.
And the stats definitely back that up especially with white young people, white young men especially, and they're going to bring their girlfriends and their wives with them.
Well, I'm going to, and on another positive note, say we are the people who have been through this enough to see through it, to have the discussions, the argument. Again, there's people we've already had the discussions with that's not going anywhere. There's people who've been, we remember being taught to be scared of the liberals, of the feminists, of the people who aren't in church. So we know the challenge that exists for people to listen to us, because we once could put up a big wall about hearing from people that were outside of our in-group. But we have knowledge on how to approach it because we remember being scared. We all know the steps that happen within us to get us moved slowly, little and little along. Nate, one of the things he said to me this morning is, he has a Trump aunt, and his dad was having a conversation with her, but he's a banker and she's into finances. And so he was addressing her on their connecting point, and he doesn't consider himself a big Democrat. Like, that's not how he identifies. He just saw Trump as bad for the economy and he doesn't make sense. And I'm not a Trumper. So he was talking to his sister-in-law, trying to just talk her through some of that. And Nate and I were fascinated when he was telling us about his conversation with her, because we could not have that conversation with her at all. She wouldn't listen to us. And also, we don't have the experience she's interested in to care about what we have to say on this topic. We're like liberals outside the church, whereas he's still adjacent to evangelicals, or connected in, and he's into the finance world. So he was able to talk with her. And that made me think we're each going to have to be strategic about where we still do have influence and where we don't, to be realistic too, about where not to invest our energy and to pour that energy into supporting our communities that need us right now. But we definitely have knowledge on what's going on, because we've lived through that. We were in those bubbles that promoted patriarchy. We might have bought into that for a period of time. We've lived out the consequences of that. Those 20-year-old girls going into it are going to go through a lot of the same things that us 40-year-old women or 30-year-old women have come out the other side having lived.
I've started in my head so many Facebook arguments, and then I think, I know exactly what they're going to say back. I know exactly. And I can have the whole discussion, both sides. I can do both sides. And at the end, I just am like, this is not going to be worth it. I'm not even going to do this. And I walk away. I just keep scrolling.
That's the math we all got to weigh out, right?
It's been happening all in our life for 3 days, 3 solid days. I've been doing this in my mind and just keeping on scrolling. It's just no point. There's
So I think the next thing I want to, bring up is like, what now? What are we up to? What are we going to be doing?
Yes.
Drink water, everyone.
Maybe we could start with like the taking care of ourselves specifically, rather than the like get to work, which we also like. We should share that if we have. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I can't even think that far. So
I think it's going to take a while to start figuring out what getting to work looks like. I'll add this on getting to work. I have one. I think the taking care of ourselves is priority right now, and it should be our focus. But I have one little thing, and I think for our audiences, this is going to be an important one. Content warning is coming up.
Yes.
And this is an ex-evangelical community that's different than a lot of the ex-evangelical community out there, because there is so much ex-evangelical community still focused on white dudes. There's so much progressive space, conferences, beer camps. I don't know. Do you want to get into all the titles of white boy gatherings? Okay.
We are better than theology beer camp. Okay.
But now that they're progressive and this and the desire to still flock to those people and those environments is big ingrained into, the amount of stuff in my feed that I often see where it's the same 3 guys. And there's some white guys I enjoy and promote too sometimes, because they have stuff to say. But one of the things that I always take into consideration is how much they will platform non-white men and women and marginalized people before I start backing up that white dude. Okay, whichever that white dude is. However, what I love about content warning and what I encourage to people who are listening to this and wanting to find community in person, to be able to see faces in the flesh. I am an introvert. So coming to a big conference is scary for me. And I actually feel intimidated by it. Like, I'm just being honest. I'm more of an extrovert when I'm talking with the people I love and know, who I've made friends with. I'm excited to see all of you guys, all my Dauntless people that I'm friends with, but I'm bigger scared in a big group because I'm a fake extrovert. So if you're also an introvert, if you know what my face looks like, you can come see me and tell me you're anxious too, and I'll be extra nice to you, because I'll know I'm with other introverts that find social gatherings hard. I find, evangelical church had that hardness of just awkward socializing. And so some of us coming out of evangelicalism know how shallow those friendships could feel, how afraid we are to engage in community again, because we don't know what friendships outside of evangelicalism look like. If they're the same, what if they're the same crappy relationships where once we leave, no one gives a crap about us anymore? Like, I get the fears and concerns, but I'll say this about content warning.
I was going to say, can you just real quickly explain what content warning is
Yeah,
for
so
people
I'm
who
gonna
don't know?
I'll
Because I
explain-
don't know what you're
yeah.
talking about.
So content warning is a gathering of ex-evangelicals to talk about purity culture, to talk about human sexuality on the other end of the ex-evangelical divide of what does that look like now, with a special focus on and platforming of racial minorities, queer people,
gender
sexual-
nonconforming.
Yep, exactly.
So the voices we were never allowed to listen to,
Yeah.
and that never get platformed, even in a lot of these ex-evangelical spaces. This is the focus. And Megan, she's a white woman who has been putting this together, but the way that she has done conferences nonstop, and this content warning last year was her first content warning, but she's done other conferences. And I heard about her because Scott was the one telling me. I went to a conference and it was all non-white people and mostly women led. And that was so different and refreshing. And I heard actually from white guys who came and were like, it was nice to sit down and learn instead of being the one on the microphone. And that was like one of the priorities on how this was run. And so content warning was the start of dealing with purity culture. I heard them saying they want to bring in politics. That will be interesting because obviously we all have a lot of sensitivity on this. We're all still ouched or touched. Our skin feels a little sensitive to the whole conversation, but it is one, hopefully by the time content warning rolls around in February, it's President's Day weekend. So think Valentine's Day, the weekend right following that. It's in Atlanta. Look up content. What's the address, babe?
It's contentwarningevent.com, but you can get to it through our website, dauntless.fm. And if you register as a listener of a Dauntless podcast, use the coupon code Dauntless10, all one word, and then the number 10, not TEN, but the number 10, Dauntless10, and you'll get $10 off of your admission for the event. I will say, as amazing as Megan is at organizing community, building, a group of people around to share, to learn, to listen, she's terrible at sales. So
that's why we're helping out
Yeah.
here. Where we love you, Megan.
Where is this going to go, Nate?
I never know with him. I'm like,
So on their after podcast, I listened to their pitch and I'm like, oh, they could probably do a better job.
Come on, Nate.
So I'm gonna go ahead and say it's gonna be a lot of fun for the extroverts out there. It'll be great to just see a whole bunch of people
Go see Nate if
and
you need
gather
an extrovert friend
and have fun.
Come see me if you need an introvert.
For the introverts out there, this is a great conference because it's not one of those kinds of conferences where it's going to be too much high energy, and you'll have a group of people and you can cluster up into your little crew. And for those who are really not into the conference circuit, this is a good one because it's panels, it's groups of people.
It's not here's a person on a stage on a mic and they're going to tell you how to live your life, which was the evangelical model that a lot of the ex community still does as their conference thing. This is not a keynote speaker this and keynote speaker that. No, this is panel of back and forth dialogue. What community should look a lot more like, what we're not used to as evangelicals. We're so about the stage, the person on the stage, and the big audience listening. And this is much more about collaboration and about community building. So if you want different models for even looking at how it looks like to gather with a group of ex-evangelicals, Nate and I will be there. Scott will be there. I know Maggie, you're going to be there. Jessica, hopefully that works out for you.
I was just looking at it. I'm like, I want to do this.
Yeah, it'll be in Atlanta. So it's a little bit of an easier trip.
They were trying to make it more. Last time it was in Portland, Oregon, and Atlanta was just more accessible for everyone to be able to be there.
It definitely is.
We're going to drive in.
Yeah.
So think about that. Think about it's a long weekend. It's President's Day weekend. Hopefully, if you have the day off, you can even make a little bit of a trip of it and explore Atlanta. Maybe see if you have a few ex-evangelical friends and you could group together, a road trip together, get a place together, a room together. And
I love it.
Or even if you have ex-evangelical friends you've met through communities where you haven't met in person and you've been looking for an excuse to get together, like to meet each other face to face, book an Airbnb in Atlanta together and be like, this will be a conference to build us up.
Great idea.
That's it. We're coming out of election. We're all raw. We're all hurting. We're devastated, and we need community. And I think this is a way to start to get to work by just having conversations and people surrounding us in the flesh. Like you were saying, Jessica, people you've met online and talking with, and then standing in a parking lot, chatting for hours. I mean, one of the things Megan did say to sell it, which was, I think, a good pitch, was just like the conversations at Content Warning were not just at the conference. It was the booking the Airbnbs together, the going out to watch shows and concerts live in the city that they were all in, that going to the restaurant after together and chatting. That's where, and that is what real community looks like. It is friendship building. It is knowing each other on a personal, real level when you see each other and look in each other's eyes and share those real things about what you're dealing with in your day to day. So I mean, we have other friends who are not part of Dauntless, like Janice will be there. And we're excited. We're excited to have you there. So that's your work. If you need something to get too busy, if you're the type of person who's like, I don't want to sit in my feelings for too long, I want to get to work, and that's how you deal with your feelings, is coming up with the next thing, then here's your thing.
Here's the next thing.
Go register Content Warning. Now let's do the self-care stuff. What do you guys have?
Well, so Content Warning was going to be a self-care thing for me, because it's like I needed something to look forward to, and I needed something. Like, it's really important to me that I keep finding pockets of community that are safe, because, like I said, I'm in a blue state, but like right around me feels strangely conservative. And so I want to make sure that I'm actively seeking out spaces that are with people who I know are safe, who I can share things, who I can continue to figure out who I am, be my full self. So Content Warning for me is that. And I've just met Megan in person for the first time because she was in Boston. So I went down and met her. It was so fun.
Like, I haven't even met you, and we're close to you. Boston to New York,
right nearby.
I'm like,
and we go to Boston pretty frequently too. We just the last times that we've been in Boston,
too much going on.
But too much going on, and I think we hadn't actually conversed.
I was going to say, I feel like you guys haven't been in Boston since we've actually met.
Yeah, no, we haven't. So we gotta do that. It's on our to. I mean, Boston is the city that we go to pretty frequently.
Yeah, and same for New York, but I haven't been since
you
I've
guys
met you
probably
guys.
all in Atlanta maybe before Boston, so that'll be nice.
Yeah.
February.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yes, that is one of my self-care things, is like I want to continue to connect with people, whether it's in person or online, but have things to look forward to. So I'm planning a couple little trips to visit my sister, to visit my sister-in-law. I'll see you guys at Content Warning. Maybe we can plan a New York City trip and I can come visit, and that kind of thing. So like, find your people, find ways to connect with them, like book a flight, pick a weekend to drive down to a friend, like make those things happen, because we all need a little boost.
Yeah.
What do you guys got? What the rest of you guys got? Jessica, Nate
and I keep doing this. I keep dancing around. Who's going to go first? I'm going to go first this time.
Go for it.
No, I think that for me, like I said earlier, I really think that we're going to have to find our in-person people and surround ourselves with our in-person people, because I just don't know how safe we're going to feel online. I know that all of us have deconstructed so much through our online communities, and it's been huge and it's been wonderful. But I think that may not feel safe going forward for a lot of us. And so I think as we pull into our community groups and try to like turn relationships that were just online into in person, I think will be huge. And so I've been hard at work on that. I think the other thing too is just getting out in nature. I'm trying to learn a lot about grounding myself to the earth, finding ways to absorb the earth's energy and allow it to rejuvenate my cells and my bones, and reconnecting with that has been something that I've been thinking a lot about in the past few days, and just how we can do that with one another, maybe yoga in the park or those kinds of things, and just taking walks and breathing some fresh air, even just stepping out the back door and taking some big deep breaths. I think that these are things that I am actively adding to my toolkit and looking for ways to make sure that I do that. Shutting off when I need to, finding funny books to listen to that are not too serious, that aren't too much to do, so that I can pop in headphones and, like Gail was saying earlier, just disassociate a little bit, but in an intentional way that like tries to, I know that one of my friends was talking about last night, just picking up physical books. She and her husband just picked up a physical book and sat down and read. And we're like, I can't remember the last time I read a book. I mean, we all are readers, right? But a lot of us are big readers. We have our audiobook going, or we have our, articles that we're reading and stuff, but maybe unplug a little bit and pick up a paper book, even if it's at a thrift shop where you can grab something that's secondhand so that you're not, contributing to more books in the world that are not needed. But you know what I'm saying? I think that those are just some things I found really helpful for me.
You're when I'm listening to you, I put on my evangelical hat for a few seconds as I was listening. I'm like, oh, tree hugger, yoga, all the stuff we were warned against, all the bad things. But then I coming out of that, I would say to the people, if there's any of you that are listening and you come out of that environment, you're starting to peek your head out, and then you're looking and you're hearing us and you're going, oh, that's the stuff I'm supposed to be scared of. Why are they all into these weird things like yoga and hugging trees or touching dirt or whatever? I'm going to say this. We've been taught in evangelicalism to detach from our bodies. And that's how we've learned to cope, to shut off our feelings. Your feelings are bad. You are bad. And so dissociating is actually an active part of staying inside of evangelicalism. Yes. Being detached from your own body, from your own feelings, from being able to, the amount of holding your breath you might even be doing in those environments continually in a survival mode. When you step out, I liked how you said toolkit, Jessica, because I think if you're thinking, well, why yoga? Why this? It's literally learning to feel in your own body. Yes. It's learning to get in touch and ground yourself, helping you retrain your nervous system to be able to function and to be able to relax and to be able to breathe well. These are all things that, when you're in a high control religious environment, you don't get to do, and it actually prevents you from being well. Well, and it affects your mental health.
I think that that's one of the things that I felt like evangelicalism took from me was my ability to be inside my body and be safe there. And that is just such a dangerous thing when you can't be inside your body and feel safe. And I think that as I've tried to work in therapy and all of these things of healing, is learning that to find within myself the compassion and gentleness and safety I can provide to me within me is such a foreign concept. Like, it's so alien to everything we were taught in evangelicalism, which is you are bad, you are evil, your core, your very self that God made and put on this earth is inherently evil.
The last message I heard in an evangelical church, and I decided I was never going back. It wasn't even a church. It was a Bible study group that was non-denominational, but it was every cell of your body is tainted by sin. Oof. Those were the words that stuck. And those were the things that made me walk away. Like that was actually the last evangelical group I was a part of.
That makes you unsafe in your body. You are unsafe there. Your soul.
Yes. The message you're saying, it was hammered in for sure.
And undoing that is not an easy process. It's very long. And it was the biggest thing that I panicked from when my divorce began, because now I didn't have marriage either, because you're taught that marriage is this place you can be and you're protected. At least that's what the message that I internalized. And not being married anymore made me feel like I am just out here exposed. I am unsafe. There's no edges.
There's no umbrella of protection over you.
Yes. There's no parameters.
Sorry for the Gothard imagery.
It's so true.
You didn't know that's where it comes from.
Yes. And I grew up in Gothard. So deconstructing that has been the most difficult thing, because it's so far baked in from the time I was so little, so small, being told that I was bad and I was evil. So therefore, I'm not safe inside of me. I'm only safe reaching out to Jesus. And that's so intangible. And so creating that safe space inside of my body, inside of me, inside of my mind, is a place that I can be. And doing that by grounding myself in the earth and the air and the atmosphere and all of these things. It's beautiful. I have loved learning those things and building that, and then realizing I'm okay no matter what happens in the world that's so unsafe and feels so uncertain. I know that inside of me I can be, and I am okay, and I love me, and I am gentle with myself, and that is a safe place.
This feels like a good time to throw in Hello Deconstructionists tagline, which is, you are good, you are loved, and you are worthy just as you are.
I love listening to your podcast because you always say that. And I'm just like, you're speaking to
I
me.
just like, we all need to hear it because we've heard what you were just talking about, Jessica, for so long. And whether it's about every cell in our body or a piece of our identity that we just can't seem to like let go of this idea, whether it's sexuality or race or gender or whatever, it's like we've held that for so long that we need to hear it over and over again. In fact, the last couple of days when I was texting with my friend Joe that I was saying earlier, I was just feeling so overwhelmed, and he texted me. He's like, you say this all the time, so I'm going to remind you that you are good and you are loved and you are worthy, and it's just as you are. Like, you don't have to change your sexuality. You don't have to change anything about you. So just like to throw that in there because I need to hear it too.
These are such good messaging.
Such good message. So true.
Yeah.
Neat.
I think...
What you doing? What's she doing to care for you?
I don't know. Just well, I'm in school.
I'm pointing to your watch.
Do you want to see what time it is?
No, because you use it to.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been trying to get back in shape a little bit. So
I'm encouraging, not just because I aesthetically enjoy how he looks and he's at the gym all the time, which I'm very impressed. I'm like poking at him at night, like, ooh, look at that, so hard.
He rolled his eyes.
No, not that hard.
Sorry. All of our brains went there.
We put an explicit label on this one, guys. We're not prudish anymore. We can handle this. No, I meant his chest.
Content warning.
I meant his chest is from all his reps.
Sure.
Like he's always
That's
like,
what
ouch.
you meant.
Once again, where's Scott? This goes on Horny Chapel podcast.
I know.
Scott.
Exactly.
He left a goodbye message. He popped out of here. He said, I got to go to lunch. Thanks for doing this, y'all. Last thing I wanted to say was, those single issue voters can kiss my ass. They voted to keep abortion and for one guy who killed it. Yeah, I don't even know what to say about that. Okay, but thanks, Scott, for joining us.
Yes.
If you haven't heard his voice, that's where he went. He had to go to lunch. Nate, getting back to us. Sorry. So I had to like just segue off, man.
Yes.
But
so he's been using his watch for exercise. I take it.
He has been working out.
I have a smartwatch and it keeps track of mine.
You know, when you start a good habit and then something devastating happens, it's easy to just be like, screw everything. I have no more energy. I want to just crawl under my blanket and stop. But I was like, Nate, you have been on a good track for yourself. And like, if I was in an exercise mode right now, I would just seriously, like what you were saying, Jessica, about being in touch with your body, I would have stayed in that. My knees are giving me lots of issues. So I feel like I'm not in a position where I could use that as my thing, which is making me sad. But I'm like, keep at that. I think that's a great self-care for you.
Yeah. So I'm doing that. I went back to the gym. And then my first day back after the election, it was even the gym felt weird.
Yeah.
Everybody, and it was quieter than usual. Everyone just kind of there was an air on campus. Like you could feel it. It felt thick. It felt dark. Yeah. But no, it felt good to be back there. I think, and there are certain things I just can't. I'm trying to get back into some hobbies that I can't see. Nothing is seeming to stick. Like I went to bed, tried to play some video games, and I'm just
you can't get into
stuck.
It. Can I give a thought on that for caring for yourself and apply to you and other people as well?
Okay.
If you're trying to get back into the hobbies and things that always connect really well for you and it's not working, be patient with yourself.
Yeah.
It's okay if right now you're grieving so hard. Like I have a hard time focusing on anything. I was hanging out with my mom, and that's a source of comfort for me, is like just chilling with her. My mom is sort of like a child in a lot of ways. Mentally, she's maybe 9 years old, and so when I hang with her, it's sweet in a certain way. And I look after her and I help her do her food shopping and things that she needs to do. And it kind of just brings me internal joy. And I was with her, and, we even laugh at cute little things. We'll watch Stephen Colbert together. We have like little shows we'll sit and watch together, but like I couldn't even enjoy my time with her. It was right after election. I was like just stunned, and I couldn't focus, and I couldn't enjoy being in her presence the way I usually do. I felt like I was a robot. I felt like I was a zombie walking through the stuff that usually brings me joy. So when you're talking about you couldn't get into your video games, if you're looking to the things that usually help you and it's not working, don't give up. Just be patient with you. Keep trying.
Yeah.
Give it a few days and go back and see if after a little bit more time you're able to.
Yeah.
But
I mean, in my situation, not a whole lot of time, because I am in grad school and working full time. So there's a lot on my plate. Thankfully, there's a lot to keep me busy and a little bit distracted. So in that sense, that's good. But yeah, I mean, obviously trying to find some enjoyment there. But I like, Jessica, I like what you were talking about, getting out into nature, feeling grounded. One of the benefits that I have and currently with, our, try to look for silver linings in the fact that we're still not living together, but traveling up to Montreal from New York City.
You got to escape.
Yeah.
Now you've gotten to escape from the US for
Yeah.
the weekend.
It probably feels a way.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, this time around I haven't felt it because I literally have not left the house since getting in. So it's not like I've walked around the city or
We're
anything.
going out in a few hours to celebrate Nate's 40th and party because this day was ruined by the election and he needs like a proper celebration.
Absolutely.
So our friends are all going to go to a Japanese restaurant and enjoy.
So, but yeah, you were talking about getting out in nature, and I've been diving a little bit back into photography and trying to find a good genre that I want to play around with a little bit, whether that's street urban photography or portraiture, landscape. That could be fun. I drive through the Adirondacks. That was the thing. Like one of the benefits of our arrangement right now is that I get to drive through the Adirondacks. And yesterday, because I took the day off work, I could drive up early enough where I didn't lose sunlight in the mountains, and it was just gorgeous to kind of take just look at everything. And it's so those things are some of the things that I'm taking some comfort in. As far as what I'm going to be doing, I don't know. I know we'll be doing this, all of us here in the Dauntless Media Collective. We're not going away. Some of our podcasts might be, hit or miss. Like, again, none of us are doing this as jobs. So, we...
Hit or miss, meaning we might be offline for a bit and then back on and spotty. That happens to some of us.
I know Gail and I have been quiet lately. We've got an episode that we still need to edit. But we're not going anywhere. We're still around. So those of you who listen to us and look to us for some support, we're around. You can always reach out, head over to dauntless.fm. You can find us there, our social media, jump into our Discord server and chat with us. We've got a thread. It's
pretty quiet in there, but feel free to jump in and chat.
Yeah, there are a few people who are regularly posting messages, which is always fun to see those people, without fail, replying to some of the little prompts that our bot puts in.
I don't know if they know they're talking to robots, but there's some robots in our Discord chatting.
Yeah, well, people like to share their stories, and that's come into the server, share your story. We're here. We want to listen. We want to chat, and it's good to have that community. So we're going to be around. We're not going anywhere.
On my end, I think I've said it all, and I echo everything you guys are saying. The be patient with yourself thing I said earlier to you, Nate, but with everyone else. And what have I been doing? I have been writing. I don't know. Sometimes writing
you're on
for me
fire.
is
You're on fire. I'm just like, she has words. I have no words. Like I have been just like locked up. Like there's no words coming out for me.
And I don't always have words.
Gail, go.
I don't always. But like if something is unlocked to be able to write and it's coming out, then I might as well enjoy using it. But it feels nice to figure out whatever the piece of you is that is activated enough to whatever it looks like. For me, it's writing right now, but I'm surprised by it. Like I'm surprised by it too. I'm like, I'm going to write my first Substack and actually start putting thoughts out there into the world. It'll be through Full Mutuality if you want to get a hold of what I wrote about the election. Probably my first one, and I'll probably write more and more.
Do you know what I want to do? Before Inauguration Day, I want to get to DC. I've never done a DC trip yet. I have not in my entire life.
Jessica,
tell me
you want to go to DC.
East.
Tell me when you're going.
Okay,
I will come drive down and join.
Are you planning on going for the march?
I am.
I didn't know about the march yet.
What's
January
18th?
Okay.
Yeah, January 18th. It is the women's march, and it's it's always been this sort of grassroots women's march. But then when Trump got elected the first time, it was absolutely massive.
Yeah, I remember that really well. But I didn't realize they were doing another one.
Huge
But I kind of wanted to go in while it's still chill a little bit. Yeah. And I wanted to, it's probably going to be a very somber trip for me emotionally. And my boyfriend and I were talking about going together and just trying to absorb the history there, absorb the feel while Biden is still in office, and because I'm not going to go while Trump is in office, and that's something that I had been planning for months to go to Inauguration Day because I thought Kamala was going to win.
Yeah.
And thinking about all of that now is just so hard and so heavy. So yeah, that's something that I was just thinking. And this is something I really, really want to do before before Biden leaves office.
Yeah.
If you go before then, let me
I
know,
will be
Jessica.
before
I'd like
then.
to join
Probably in
Perfect.
December.
Yeah. Because the 18th is sort of the second to last day of the Biden, second or third to last day of the Biden
And I'm
administration.
really not
Enjoy your
sure I want to be
freedom,
there
America.
for that kind of tension because it's going to be high. Really, really, really
yeah.
high.
And I think there are going to be marches outside of just the one in DC. I know there will likely be one in New York City.
And that I will probably
which will
go to
probably-
Austin for. I would definitely show up in Austin for that. And that would
Yeah.
probably be very important for there to be a big show in Austin, Texas about our capital.
I think of, and maybe ending with notes of hope. I think about the Black Lives Matter marches that were happening in 2020 at the height of the pandemic when it was so scary for your life. We didn't have vaccines yet to go outside. People were marching in the streets. In Canada, Montreal was full of millions of people marching in the streets in solidarity. And I think of this was during a Trump era.
Yeah.
This is while he was
2020.
talking about mowing down protesters and holding up his Bible in front of a black church. This is what the atmosphere and climate was when people rallied together en masse. Sorry for my French, but like just gathered and were like, you cannot silence us. And I think sometimes protest movements spark up when we're being shut down and when we're being told you don't get to have a voice. So I hope for that. Yes. I hope that there will be a lot of these kinds of things going on where we continue to be like, guess what? We're here. We're a group. We're going to gather together. We're going to continue to be heard. We're going to continue to show that we exist and that you can't shut us up.
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Preach.
Yes. Well, I'll be in DC marching on January 18th. So if anybody is there, any listeners are there,
get a hold of Maggie.
let me know.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll see each other. Maybe we won't, but we'll be marching together.
Yeah.
That's right.
And DC's not too far. I mean, if New York is doing something, I'll probably be in New York. But you know what? Maybe I'll.
If you're in the New York area and you want to be in one of these marches, you can message us. We'll see if we're kicking around. We'll go show up for these.
Yeah, we've been chatting for a long time.
Hopefully this gives some comfort. If you've been searching for the political podcast talking, I don't know about the rest of you, but I was searching and it's quiet out there. It's like the crickets chirping. Everyone's in stunned shock right now.
And grieving.
So we felt the need to get together. We really wanted to feel the need to speak to our community and to be like, we're listening. We're here. We're processing too. You're not alone.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll put this on all of our podcasts of the folks that were here. So, Scott will put it on Chapel Probation. It'll go on Hello Deconstructionists, Leaving the Village, Full Mutuality. And then, some of the other podcasts, I guess we could put it out there if they want to put this on their feed. If not, you can always find us. I'll give a plug for, if you want to share your story, if you think you have a story to share about deconstructing and leaving evangelicalism, reach out to Maggie. That's kind of like the storytelling podcast, and her podcast is so
lovely.
Good. It's just great to hear from people in that world and to hear them tell their stories. And Maggie's great at drawing people's stories out of them as they're talking. So yeah, I like even when we were talking and I was telling my story, you drew out of me things that I don't recall ever talking to other people. And I heard Gail telling her story on your podcast and things that she said that I was like, oh, I don't think you said that to anyone else or said it in quite that way. So yeah, Maggie's really good at that.
That's such a nice compliment. Thank you, Nate.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And then our podcast, obviously, ours focuses mostly on the idea of equality and finding those areas where, we need to highlight justice in order to upend that inequality. So if that's a topic that you want to talk about, reach out.
It's more important than ever right now.
If you were part of an evangelical college or university that traumatized you, Scott's your boy.
Yes, absolutely.
And if you know about the Bill Gothard ATI world, Jessica is the one you want to send a message to.
Yes, and we've been on hiatus for a while, but we've got other projects in the works and have been for a while. So we'll see what we're able to pull.
Yeah, we're excited to hear your voice, whether it's back on Leaving the Village or whether it's a new project. We're excited to hear you back in the
I
trenches,
have missed it very, very much. So, and all of y'all.
I would say we've missed you, but we're in a chat group that talks a lot. So.
I know. We chat all the time.
I know.
And
I was just chatting
FaceTime
with you
and all
yesterday.
that stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's good. It's very good.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, thanks.
Hug
thanks for
your
hanging
friends.
out.
Hug your loved ones. Hold them tight. When Nate got in yesterday, I wrapped my arms around him. He started crying in my arms. And then my son came into our group hug and wrapped his arms around both of us. And I was just like, oh, the men in my life are able to be emotional and they're able to show love and affection and be real with their feelings. And I had a happy moment of just having the boys come in and hug each other.
Yeah.
Grief is healing. So
yes,
we will sit with our grief and we will be with all of you listening in your grief as well. And yes, feel free to reach out. Our inboxes are always open.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I love you all. Those of you on this call, Scott, even though you left, I still love you.
Love you, Scott.
Maggie, you want to close us out? Because I don't want to have a man having the last word. Love you, babe.
No, of course. But I also want to say before you close this out, I do want to say that all of you in our community, those of you who are in our Discord server who chat with us and who sometimes just scream into the void, I love you. And to all of our supporters on Patreon, on our various channels, our Instagram followers, love you all. And thanks for being with us up to this point, and thanks for being with us from here on out.
Yeah. I will echo what Nate said. It means a lot to know that there are people out there having these conversations with us in their own homes, even just through listening. And so we appreciate all of you for being here with us and listening. Yeah. And I hope that listening to us kind of process our grief has helped you process some of your own too. And please know that you're not alone, and you are good, and you are loved, and you are worthy just as you are.
Lovely.
I love it.
This is a Dauntless Media Collective podcast. Visit dauntless.fm for more content.